Okay.
Hold, Sarah, I have to do an introduction. And then
okay. Sorry.
I'll introduce you, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Good evening. Tonight is September 14th, and we do have a quorum, so I will call this meeting to order. Due to the current federal and state emergency declarations and guidance about limiting person-to-person contact due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting of the Edina Public School District School Board is being conducted online in accordance with Minnesota Statutes 13D-021, meetings by telephone or other electronic means. Members of the public may monitor this meeting remotely through the district's YouTube channel. School board members are reminded to mute their microphone or phone when they are not speaking. School board members wishing to speak should unmute their microphone so I can see who is waiting to speak and then wait to be recognized. I will determine the order in which board members wishing to speak will be recognized. I also want to let our community and public know that we are continuing to work on making our meetings more accessible, and we are considering ways to safely resume in-person board meetings. We face two major challenges with resuming in-person board meetings. We must manage the number of individuals who can safely attend board meetings based on social distancing requirements. And second, we are limited in the physical spaces that can be used for in-person meetings due to construction projects and the fact that the Edina School Board room is being remodeled. Because of the social distancing requirements in the governor's orders, the board would have to significantly limit the number of people who could attend board meetings in most of the available spaces, which would somewhat defeat the purpose of trying to get back to in-person meetings with public attendance. We want the public to know that we explored several spaces in the district that would be available for in-person board meetings, including auditoriums and classrooms. In each case, either cleaning protocols could not be completed, there was not enough room for socially distanced attendance by more than a few members of the public, or a significant amount of financial investment in technology would have been required to hold an in-person meeting in that space. Also, more rooms have been occupied this year to safely social distance students in buildings during the school day. Some community spaces have now become classrooms. Despite these challenges, we would like to start opening up meetings for testimony or presentations with limited availability for members of the public to attend meetings. The board meeting will be conducted in the district office conference room on the third floor of the community center. This meeting will also be conducted using the Google Meets platform and will be streamed on the Edina Public Schools YouTube channel. Some board members will be present in the district office conference room, and others will be remote. We will follow all health and safety protocols for all school board meetings. This means any individuals who attend board meetings in person must remain at least 6 feet apart and wear a face covering as required in the governor's executive order. Those not following these protocols will be asked to leave. To safely social distance, the district office conference room has the capacity to allow only one individual at a time into the room to report or to address the school board. There will also be public seating for only 10 members in the collaborative workspace outside the district office conference room, where they can wait their turn to address the school board. The YouTube stream will also be available in this space. Public comment will be taken at the beginning of the meeting. One person will enter the district office to speak. The speaker will be invited to sit at the table in front of the board and be given 3 minutes to speak. Cleaning protocol after each speaker at the table and computer will be completed by the superintendent. Individuals who do not wish to address the board remotely will still have the option to submit their statements ahead of time. Individuals who do not wish to address the board in person will still have the option to submit their statements ahead of time and have them read at the board meeting. We are encouraging individuals to still listen to the meeting on the YouTube at home. This helps us manage limitations we have on room capacity. The board will continue to read all emails sent to the board for the meeting. The public is asked to go to the website to send an email by noon on the day of the board meeting to schoolboard@edinaschools.org. Add to the subject line board meeting comment. Please provide what you want to read in the body of the email. If you have any questions about our board meetings, please contact the superintendent's office. And that is it for our new protocol. So the first order of business tonight is our agenda approval. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's
meeting? So moved.
Second.
We'll now vote to approve tonight's agenda.
Allenberg,
Aye.
Fox,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Michelson,
Aye.
Shaw,
Aye.
Wallen-Friedman.
Aye.
The board agenda has been approved. John, will you please review tonight's agenda for us quickly?
Turn my mic on. So tonight we have Excellence in Action, Robotics. We do have some hearing from members of our public. A presentation on just the first day of schools. The consent agenda. Under discussion, we're going to talk about the renewal of the technology levy. We have policies 407 and 408. We're going to have action on a proposed property tax levy for pay 2021. Approval of end of year fund transfers for fiscal 1920. We have the purchase of Chromebooks and purchase of interactive classroom panels, the approval of the superintendent goals and board goals, some rapid policy review of 401, 404, 405, and then policy review 601. And then in information, there's some information. The advanced placement test summary report is available to the public and to the board.
Great. Thank you, Superintendent Schultz. So the next thing on our agenda is our Excellence in Action portion of the agenda. And tonight we're highlighting our Green Machine robotics team. And we have Sarah Swan here, who is at our high school to talk about what the robotics team has been up to and how they have some of the things that they've been working on through this strange time that we've been in right now. So thank you for coming tonight, Sarah. And I will turn it over to you to update us on what the robotics team has been up to.
And Sarah, this is Superintendent Schultz. I'll drive your PowerPoint or your slides. Just tell me when to advance.
Okay, thank you. So this is Team 1816 State of STEM Annual Update for the Edina School Board. I am Sarah Swan. I'm currently a senior in high school, and I'm also one of the build leads. Next slide, please.
Did it go? Yeah.
So we'll start off, what is FIRST? Well, FIRST is an international organization that runs K-12 robotics programs. There's about 660,000+ students involved worldwide. It helps many young people discover and develop a passion for STEM. And there's about $80 million in college scholarships available for FIRST program participants. Next slide, please. So a little bit about our team. We were founded in 2006, and we are now the longest sustaining FIRST team in Minnesota. We are also the only team in Minnesota that have been inducted into the FIRST Hall of Fame. This year, we attended Duluth Regional, and we won the tournament. We were the #1 seed, and we had an undefeated playoff. So a bit of fast facts about our team: 100% of our team members graduate high school, 89% pursue STEM majors in college, 85% pursue STEM careers, and we've graduated 49 women. 76% have pursued STEM careers. I am actually going to be hopefully will be one of the women who would graduate next year. Robotics has heavily influenced me, and especially where I'm going to go into my career. Before I joined robotics, I played hockey. I mean, I still do, but all I really thought about then was hockey. I wasn't really thinking about anything STEM. And then I joined robotics, and I found I really loved STEM. I had passion for engineering, and so now I'm actually applying to be a mechanical engineering major in college. So that's how robotics has influenced me. Next slide, please. So this picture on the slide actually shows our team retreat, in which we bring our rookies and different team members to, where we instill both our mission and our core values. And so our mission is to build bold, confident leaders who transform culture to promote value and celebrate STEM. And our core values are respect, trust, inclusivity, commitment, and joy of life. Next slide, please. So in 2019, we won the World Chairman's Award. This award is the most prestigious award that is given out by FIRST. Every year is awarded to teams for demonstrating outstanding work in STEM outreach. It allows us to gain international recognition and respect. And we also get our qualification for the World Championship, which is renewed annually, meaning we get to go back to the championship each year. Next slide, please. So, of course, the robotics team doesn't only just build robots. Each year, students spend about 2,000 plus hours mentoring and working with other FIRST teams in our district. So we have events all across the state. This includes preseason training, summer leadership camps, events of people serving people, 70 plus other unique outreach events annually before COVID. And we do a lot of advocacy as well. One instance is we helped organize MURA in Minneapolis, and MURA is a practice field. And so it's one of the sites that has a competition field, which was purchased for state money. And so like in hockey, you need a rink to practice. So robotics, many of these teams normally don't have the access or resources to get a practice field, and having access to a practice field allows them to significantly improve their performance. So it's super helpful to each and every one of the teams that can access it. Next slide, please. So a bit of a recent activity during COVID-19, we've worked with different robotics teams to produce many face shields, both for medical workers and for EPS teachers. And inside 1816, we've done different knowledge shares, and also we did a summer design challenge where we had different members work on CAD. We've done plenty of outreach in Australia, India, and also Texas. And then we also did a PTC Onshape trial. And so PTC is a sponsor of ours, and they also publish Onshape. And what Onshape is, it's an online CAD program. And so we did kind of a trial of it where we did user testing and gave it suggestions for improvements. And so this Onshape this Onshape program is actually going to be used in Edina Public Schools in the future for the PLTW classes. Next slide, please. So thank you so much for the continued support and giving us the ability to use the facilities so we can continue to run this successful program for the students. Are there any questions?
I have a quick question. And well, first of all, thank you for coming. And I love the FIRST program and robotics. It's such an outstanding program for what you do, not only in the robotics, but I know you do a ton of outreach. So I really appreciate that. Have you guys been told if you're going to be able to compete at all this year or how that will work? I was just wondering.
So actually, I think they're organizing it a bit now, but so we have maybe a possibility of doing maybe some live events, or also where they might be just a lot shorter than other events. But at the time, we're not totally sure about how that's going to work. I think it's still being figured out a lot. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So I have a couple of questions. I don't know if you have been with the organization. I think from prior to the construction, in other words, we did some remodel at the high school, expanded the space. Did you get to see the old space versus the new, and what's the comparison like? My first year was the year we had the remodel. So I was a ninth grader the first time they brought ninth graders in. But so we actually used both of the shops. We used both the upper shop and the lower shop. The lower shop is where the new construction was. And so that's super useful to us because that we were able to put our router there, and with the router and with the space we have, we're able to produce so many different things for a robot that we previously were not able to. So it's definitely helped us, the remodel. Great. It's an exciting program.
Sarah, can you talk a little bit about how you got started in robotics? Did you start with First Lego League? Were you an FTC? Can you talk a little bit about the other programs within Edina?
Yeah, so we actually have I think there used to be 4 different programs, but now they're condensing it down to 3. So we have First Lego League, First Tech Challenge, and First Robotics competition, which is what I'm in currently. So I started with FTC.
So that was, my brother did it before me. And so I kind of did FTC for 2 years, and I wasn't super duper into it. The robots were a bit smaller, but it's super cool to see all the new different things. But when I got to FRC, that was where it just like clicked for me. And that's where I really kind of found my passion. The robots are bigger. There's just all this, so much more stuff. You know, our team has so many different aspects about it. And we kind of run it like a small business. We have the 3 different sub teams: build, business, and CSP. And so I'm on build and business as well. And it's just the divisions of the team and being able to do so much more and so much being into it so much is just really great. And also I love that FIRST has the different pipelines towards the FRC, because when you're younger, you know, there's not much that you can do to get into robotics. But FIRST Lego League kind of both combines a really, really popular toy and then also kind of a start to the robotics that, you know, we don't see a lot. And so it definitely, and then the FTC, it provides like a bigger robot from them. It's more complicated, and it kind of ramps up all the FRC. And it's just a great way to get kids into STEM. I know so many people who've done robotics who is very much impacted. And like me, I never would have thought that I'd be interested in engineering. You know, something that never really occurred to me. And then robotics just really showed me that how much I loved it and how entertaining and just amazing it can be. So that's like, I found that that's something I really love. And now I'm going to be going to college for it. So
thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Well, thank you very much for coming and presenting, Sarah, and good luck with your senior year and with any robotics competitions that you are able to do this year. I certainly hope that you're able to compete this year in some way. So I know how exciting those competitions are. So I wish you luck, and I'm sure the rest of the board does as well. So thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda are hearings from members of the public, and we do have some emails that are going to be read tonight, and we have Business Director John Tope, who will read the emails that we have that members of the public have submitted to us.
Thank you, Chair Ellenberg. The first letter is from Heather Teets. She writes, "Thank you for your service during this extraordinary time. It is appreciated. I am writing today to ask that the board put in place weekly communications to parents and the community of both the number of students and staff diagnosed with COVID at each school and the number of students and staff under quarantine at each school. As a parent of a student in the high school, I received the email notification this week that a high school student had been diagnosed and close contacts asked to quarantine. The email also stated that the school board would not be sending out notification every time a student or staff was diagnosed. I completely understand the administration not wanting to send out constant notifications. However, I do believe it is in the community's best interest to be kept informed of the number of students and staff testing positive and the number of students under quarantine for each school. Then if the administration determines changes need to be made to instructional models based upon case/quarantine counts, it will not be a surprise to the community. This communication would only be numbers of positive diagnoses and quarantine per school. It would not include personal information. In this, as in most things, transparency will help keep the community in alignment with the schools during this time of constant change and adjustment. Thank you for your consideration of a timely implementation of this type of communication. Yours, Heather Teets, parent of Edina 7th and 10th graders. The next one is from Tony Succio. He writes, "Dear school board members and Superintendent Schultz, I am the parent of 2 students at Edina High School. Both of my children are currently participating in the hybrid model. Last week, we received the notification that there had been a COVID-19 case involving a student on the EHS campus. The notification indicated that people who had been in close and prolonged contact had been contacted individually, and the rest of the EHS community had not been exposed to any greater risk than they would have been out in the general community. Although unhappy to hear a COVID-19 case had popped up so soon, I was grateful to be notified and to hear how EHS had responded to the case. While I appreciated the notice, I was dismayed to read that going forward, EHS protocol, quote, does not include notifying all families and students each time a case of COVID is identified, close quote. Considering the unique nature of COVID-19, highly contagious, asymptomatic carriers, potentially severe health consequences, I think any and all confirmed cases at EHS warrant notifying the entire EHS community. Parents and students should have this information so they can make informed, responsible decisions regarding continued participation in the hybrid model. I ask the board to make it part of the district policy that families be notified each time there is a confirmed COVID-19 case among staff or students at their student's school. Thank you, Tony Succio. The last one is from Rick Avilas. He writes, Jeff and school board, I'm writing to you as a concerned parent of a child in special education and EPS. I should say Jeff Jorgensen is our special ed director. I am alarmed at the lack of planning for the students that are the most vulnerable. These are students that already have learning disabilities, and the lack of in-person engagement with qualified instructors is detrimental to their long-term advancement. These students have been out of school 6 months, and many did not qualify for summer services. Starting the 2021 school year with only 2 days a week instruction is not enough to begin to make up for lost time. Frankly, I am surprised that the school district only started at 2 days a week. If the kindergartners can go 4 days a week, then why not special education students? In speaking with other parents, many are seeing negative impacts, including regression in behaviors and skills. Special education parents across the country are experiencing similar issues and share the same concerns. This has been well documented in the news. There's an article about families of children with special needs are suing in several states. Here's why, article he references. I would like to understand the EPS plan to increase the frequency of in-person instruction for special education students. We are reaching a point that compensatory services will be required if EPS cannot fulfill their role. Looking forward to understanding next steps. Thank you, Rick Avilas.
Thank you, Director Tope. I appreciate you reading those for us. And just to reiterate for the rest of the community, you're welcome to provide emails to us for any agenda items via email. And then, as I referenced before, we do have limited space if you want to come to our next regular board meeting and speak in person to us. We're now going to move on to a presentation. School year, the 2020-2021 school year. Before administrators get started with the agenda item, I just wanted to set board expectations that this is not intended as an evaluative update for learning models. But since today is the first day of school, we just thought it would be nice to get our site level administrators here to let us know how the first day of school went. From a process and evaluation standpoint, at our work session next Tuesday, as a board, we will be discussing a framework for how we should evaluate the 2020-2021 learning models and what our communications expectations should be on a go-forward basis. With that being said, I will turn it over to Superintendent Schultz to lead us in this presentation.
Thanks, Erica. So it is the first day of school, so we assembled leaders together today to just share some anecdotes walking through the schools the last couple of weeks. It's much more calm in the hallways. For a person who taught with a lot of play, it was I'd like a little bit more noise. So, but nonetheless, it was a great start. The staff, I commend everybody who has put in the hours of planning, the thoughts, the expertise, the time to launch this school year. And of course, the school year does look very different than other school years. So I'm going to have Dr. Smazel facilitate this portion, just to call people out to share where they're at. So I'll turn it over to you, Randy.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Allenberg, Superintendent Schultz, board members, community members, and staff. I do have a lawnmower right outside my window, so if it gets a little noisy, I will try to adjust here. We have a number of district staff members here this evening to share a bit of updates from their site or from the program that they manage. And I'll start off by saying that there was a lot of hard work for many months to prepare for the launch of these two models that we have. And as of today, we were able to launch fully our hybrid and our Edina Virtual Academy pathways. The Virtual Academy looks a little different at the elementary level than at the secondary level. We have all of our students in the hybrid that have now are coming in this week, 2 days per week. We started that a little bit more slowly last week. And then next week, we'll be adding kindergarten for 4 days for the week. Choices from the families have been solidified now, at least for this first semester, or when at some point the model changes, or if it changes. Right now in EVA, we had about 2,050 students that selected the EVA pathway, with about 900 of those being in elementary. In terms of the hybrid, about 6,300 students had selected the hybrid K-12. About 23% of the students in elementary selected EVA, and about 26.5% for middle school selected EVA, and about 25% for the high school. We're pretty balanced across genders in both EVA and hybrid. We're slightly higher in EVA for students receiving special ed services or gifted and talented services. We're significantly higher in EVA for students receiving ML services or multilingual services. We have about 51% students of color in EVA, and we're slightly lower in free and reduced price meals in EVA. But we're going to dig into that data a little bit more at our September, I think it's the 22nd board work session. We'll kind of dig into some of our data regarding the models and how we're going to monitor learning moving forward, as Erica mentioned. One of the quotes I've heard probably 5 or 6 times from teachers and visiting the sites is, "I feel like a brand new teacher." And there's good and bad with that. We know that this is a very, very heavy lift for our teachers. We're asking a lot of our teachers. We're asking a lot of our administrators and our building and site level leaders. And we sincerely want to say thank you, and thank you for all of your hard work in preparing for this launch and preparing for our kids. Our kids need our teachers, and our kids need our site leaders, and they need our principals. And we have the best here in Edina, and so we're so appreciative of all the hard work that has gone into launching these two models this year. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the tiles from the family dashboard, and I'll just ask that for each of those tiles, maybe we can do a brief update or a couple of words to share from teaching, learning, from operations, and then we'll do a site report out from each of the levels, starting with the Early Learning Center. So in a moment, maybe Mary Whitey can talk a little bit about the dashboard. Jody D. St. Hubert will talk a little bit about what's happening with learning. If Eric Hamilton is here tonight, maybe a little bit on safe learning spaces and any highlights that you want to share. Mary Hyman, a couple of words about our COVID monitoring. David White about transportation, any highlights thus far, last week or this week. Dan Hutchinson, a couple elements about nutrition. Steve Butner about tech. Jeff Jorgensen, if you have a few words to say, only a few, Jeff, about mental health and wellness. And Troy Stein, a little update on athletics and activities. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mary Whitey to talk a little bit about the dashboard that we have built as the hub of information that we're sharing with our families about these two models. So, Mary?
Thank you, Randy. Good evening, everybody. Yes, I'll just give you kind of a quick overview of some of the information about the dashboard, and then just a couple of other communications things that we've done over the past month, just leading up to the back to school time. So we started building the dashboard in early August. I think the first tiles that we opened were the learning models and the safe learning spaces. And now we're up to 13 tiles, 4 of which are specific to the academic programs and include schedules and calendars and links to other information. So a lot of these tiles kind of tie together and back and forth. So as of today, the kind of the peak view of the family dashboard has had 22,664 views. So to put that in perspective, I looked back at last year at the same time frame when we were promoting the back to school webpage. Of course, we didn't have a dashboard last year, but we had the back to school handbook page. And that had, the high point was 8,292. So folks, I feel, are really finding the dashboard useful, and they're going there multiple times. And of course, every time we've opened a new tile, we've promoted it in various ways on website banners and newsletters, and the principals have really helped us too, promoting it in their newsletters and their letters to staff. So, and we'll continue to build it, and we'll continue to update. So just another other couple of quick things. On September 1st, we sent out the e-newsletter safety edition. So it was the buzz and in the know that families are used to getting, but it was during an in-between week. And the focus of it was really those 4 pillars of mitigation: social distancing, masking, washing hands, and screening. And we really very quickly had a 60% open rate. It went out to 10,800 families or emails, and 60% open rate just tells me that they really were interested in the topic. And so that was well received as well. And then last week, we had the virtual Q&A on September 10th. We received questions from about 16 families, but all total, there were about 40 questions. And during the live stream of it, we had, at the high point, there were about 65 people watching the elementary live stream, and about 45 were watching the second live stream that was geared towards secondary school and secondary academics. But since then, on YouTube, we recorded it and posted it on YouTube. Elementary has now had 373 views, and secondary has had 257. So I think folks are still finding that to be a useful thing, and we'll promote that in this week's e-newsletter too. So if anybody missed it or didn't know where to find it, we can link to that. So then this week, and last week, actually, we were out to the sites and taking pictures at all of the schools of what orientation looked like. This week, we're getting pictures of what those kind of first days look like. I know tomorrow we're going to get over to the high school and see the choir practicing outside. And we will be putting together one of our EPS In Focus photo blogs that will include with the e-newsletter that goes out on Thursday. So everybody will be able to see at least a few pictures of the fun stuff that the principals are going to talk about next.
Thank you so much, Mary.
You're welcome.
Jody, anything you want to add around the learning models?
Thank you, Randy, and thank you, Chair Ellenberg and community members. The pieces that I'll just highlight, when you go to the website and go to the family dashboard about learning models, you'll see descriptions of all of the different models at all of the different levels. In addition to the descriptions, you'll see some learning descriptors, some general schedules, and some calendars, and some technology etiquette and resources for families and students to engage in learning. And I do want to reiterate, as we work through our instructional commitments and helping with teaching and learning, what Dr. Smazel said about our teachers and our admins and all of our staff, how incredibly hard everyone is working. And we are working as a district team to be as responsive and supportive to our students and our staff as they enter each different model, and make sure that we're maintaining a commitment to excellence as we do that. So that is all. There's a lot on the family dashboard page with the learning models and continued information. I encourage everyone to continue to look there for additional updates.
Thank you, Jody. I don't know if we have Eric Hamilton here tonight, but if you are, Eric, do you want to say a few words about our learning spaces?
Hi, Randy. Yep, I am here if you can hear me.
Yep.
We had a incredibly long summer this year, and it's amazing because even the grounds crew was excited to have kids back in the building. They just said, we're ready for kids to be in our building. So it's kind of fun to hear that side of it. We had a good start of the school year. ECC was able to get a fire drill in within 5 minutes of school starting, which wasn't planned, but it worked well. We placed hand sanitizer at every single teacher's desk. We put up barriers. We put up hand sanitizing stations at the entrances. A good solid start to the school year. We still are working through a few issues, but very positive start, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the school year.
Thank you, Eric. Mary Hyman, if you are here this evening, any updates around our COVID monitoring?
Hi, everyone. Yes, related to COVID monitoring, we've certainly started out with a bang, especially with sending students home who have symptoms of COVID, minor or lesser common symptoms based on the Minnesota Department of Health exclusion guidelines. And so we're going to continue to work with the buildings on that. And so what that means is the health staff working with the administrative staff, and then branching out to the teaching staff and everyone that might have been a possible close contact or anyone that needs to be monitored for symptoms. And that also includes out on the school buses. So when things like this come up, it definitely involves all aspects of everyone in the buildings. So regarding the communications, we'll work together to make sure, we get the community the information they're looking for. Yet, still while being confidential of student and staff and not making any information identifiable. So we'll continue to work on that with the monitoring. And, the most important thing is monitoring is just keeping up with what we're expected to report related to the Minnesota Department of Health. So that certainly impacts a lot of people. So we'll continue to work on that.
Thank you so much, Mary. David, if you're here, a brief update around transportation.
Yes. Good evening, Chair Ellenberg, school board, staff members, and community members. So I'll give you a quick update on transportation. I'll tell you, it's great to see the buses running again. Like I say, it's been a long summer. It was great. I was out at Highlands, Normandale OLG, and Valley View this afternoon watching the buses. Very smooth startup on our end. Kids are getting to and from school. We are monitoring our load counts, and we've had some calls of parents asking if they could join back in transportation. They maybe opted out over the summer. So we're watching our numbers, and we're going to contact those parents next week and see if we have room, if we can get a few more students back on the buses. Otherwise, like I say, everything's going great.
Thank you, David. Dan Hutchinson, couple words about nutrition services.
Yes, thank you, Doctor. Good evening, Chairman Allenberg, Superintendent Schultz, principals, and fellow staff. First day of food service throughout the district. Certainly a smaller percentage, only fed about 22% of what we normally do with the cold lunches. We did 219 breakfasts and 522 lunches. Those lunches are normally what we do at the high school alone. So needless to say, as soon as we can get back to doing hot food, students do like, the hot food. We will start up a la carte items at the secondary level starting this coming Monday. Roll it out slowly, have a small little menu for additional items for the students. Generally, the feedback from the managers today with the program that we're running at the elementary levels, things went pretty smooth with the deliveries. a few kinks here and there. Nothing that we can't iron out throughout the coming days. But all in all, things went well. A little word just on the deliveries for the distant learning. Last week on Wednesday, we just had curbside pickup. We did, to our surprise, feed about 30 students. We had 30 families come. Well, not quite 30 families, but enough to feed 30 students went out. This Wednesday with David's team, we plan on rolling out the deliveries, which was pretty much going to be the same thing that we did this summer on Mondays, but we'll do it on Wednesday with the dinner meals from the Ed Fund and Give and Go. So dinners will go out and meals will go out. We started a new Google Doc for families to sign up. And currently we are at 54 families and 107 students. So it's very positive. We ended the summer at about 125 students that we were feeding. So certainly I think that number will grow throughout the fall. And that's about it.
Thank you, Dan. How about technology update from Mr. Buettner?
Good evening, Dr. Smazel, Dr. Schultz, Chair Ellenberg, and fellow board members. We too in DMTS, we're happy to see the kids back. It's always a great time of the year to actually see the technology that we put so much effort in to being used by students. This year we worked diligently to get the technology in the hands of the students, and we've been doing a number of projects of distribution at the building levels and also working as well to do that. And now what we're finding is that we're helping to repair that. The challenge for DMTS is that instead of having 9 buildings now, we have countless homes that we're also supporting. So we are taking telephone calls and email support from parents. That call volume went up significantly the last couple weeks, and today we had over 151 phone calls and 210 tickets open. So we're working through those, but everybody, it's great to talk to people. It's great to problem solve with families on the technology. Some of the efforts that we've been doing to try to mitigate challenges with technology uses by the parents is last week we did offer a number of sessions of assisting your child in a hybrid or distance learning model, and we had over 500 families sign up for those virtual sessions, and the feedback was all positive. Looking at the numbers, we had over 66% were a 9 or 10, and we had no comment that was under a 6 out of 10. So it was pretty well received. Like the Q&A sessions, those sessions are on our YouTube channel, and so I'm sure we have a number of people watching those, and we will be working with our cultural liaisons and our middle schools and high schools to offer more of them in the upcoming weeks. That's all from technology.
Thank you, Steve. Mr. Jorgensen, you are up next for mental health and wellness.
Thank you, Dr. Schmazel, Superintendent Schultz, Chair Ellenberg, and esteemed board members. It's a great pleasure to be with you all tonight. In terms of mental health, we've done a great deal of ramp up over the course of the summer in our preschool in-service with training for our staff, for some caregiver training, especially for our teachers around the development of self-care plans, and also maintaining our great service of continuum in terms of mental health services being available to students that may be struggling coming in. What we have found already, though, is that they're in the return of students that we've seen in person is that students are taking care of some of those mental health issues by coming back with a sense of joy, being able to connect with one another again. It's also been a great panacea for many of our staff as we get past that anticipation and planning and we get into direct service to students, which definitely lends itself to increasing those positive endorphins that are taking place between our ears. And so I think we're off to a good start. Our continuum and services in place for those that continue to struggle, and we're gonna do good work this year. So.
Thank you, Jeff. And Mr. Stein with an update around some athletics and activities going on in the district.
Thank you, Dr. Smazel, and good evening, everybody. We've had a successful start to fall sports season specifically, and it's hard to believe we are entering our 5th week of practices and competitions related to tennis and cross country, swim and dive, and soccer. And we've had a nice start due to some really nice protocols put forth by MDH and MDE along with the Minnesota State High School League, but also more importantly, the support of our community to continue to work together to keep our kids safe and our program safe and running. So it's been nice. We continue to expand our streaming opportunities for our programs. Any program that is not allowing spectators in. So for example, Girls Swim and Dive, we are doing some live streaming and looking to expand that. And that's been a nice addition. We should know more about winter sports and the opportunities in front of us at a Minnesota State High School League board meeting on October 1. And we continue to look at our activities and club offerings, and those specifically. We're working hard for any activity or club that is teacher-led to provide some opportunities, both either in person or virtually. And we have gone with our student-led clubs to be fully virtual this year. So you had a great student and athletes and also involved in activities, and Sarah to open up the meeting. And that was outstanding to hear her passion as she has both success in sports, but also in FIRST Robotics. So that's my quick update. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Troy. I just want to say there's been so much creativity and problem solving and collaboration with all of these operational leaders, and that's really something to be celebrated as we've launched into the fall. Obviously, the complexity of all the things that are happening behind the scenes are getting surfaced here in just a few minutes, and it's really amazing work. And so thank you for sharing, and thank you for all of your hard work this summer in preparing for our launch. In terms of safety protocols and reminders, of course, Mary continues to talk about with all of us the importance of masking, the importance of social distancing, the importance of hand washing, and we'll continue to remind students about those. And you'll see photos modeling that. You'll see posters modeling that. You'll see signage in the buildings of how to move or where to place yourself, etc., as we continue to reinforce that throughout the district. So at this time, we're going to move through each of our sites, and we'll just get a little update from early learning. And we have Leah Bird here this evening, and then Lisa Masika and Paul Domer will speak a little bit about elementary and some things happening in their buildings last week and today. And then we have Tim Anderson speaking from Southview Middle School to cover the middle schools. And then Andy Beaton will wrap it up with the high school update. So just a few of the highlights so far this year. So Leah, you want to start us off?
Thanks, Dr. Smazel. Good evening, Chairwoman Allenberg, Superintendent Schultz, school board members, colleagues, and the community out there. Thanks so much for the opportunity to share with you. Today was our first day of school at the Early Learning Center, and as many of you know, some kids come to school 5 days a week, some come 4 days, 3 days, 2 days. So we're going to have a first day of school for a whole week straight, which should be pretty fun. Today was exciting. Lots of very happy kids to be back at school and happy parents as well to be bringing their little ones to us. Working hard on all of our safety protocols, social distancing, making sure that we're washing hands, wearing our masks, all that kind of stuff. So it was a really good first day. Like everybody else said, there's a few things that we kind of have to tweak or work out, but for the most part, a pretty successful day today. Thanks.
Thank you, Leah. We'll move on to a little bit of update from Lisa and Paul around elementary.
Good evening, everyone. Chair Ellenberg and the school board, along with community members. I wanted to just kind of go through some highlights of what has been going on in the elementary buildings. We had last week, of course, our orientation week, and I've heard numerous times from both staff and families about how helpful the time was to sit with teachers to talk about concerns and hopes they have for this year. The teachers felt very prepared to receive students today. Some of our staff did assessments with students to see kind of where were the students that they were receiving into their classrooms, where were they at, and what has happened since March until now. And so that was a really helpful piece for teachers and students to get them started. Arrival and dismissal today went smoother than I think it's ever gone on the first day of school. Very orderly. Obviously, we had about half as many students. I think this is my 11th year being an administrator, and I had no big emotions from any single student coming into school today. So, which says a lot about, our current times and how kids are feeling. People were really excited to be back. Families were excited to be back to walk their kids to school or to drop them off in a car. And things went very smoothly on that end. From grade level perspectives, I'm just going to share a few little tidbits from different grade levels. Like I said, typically it's our kindergartners who have a hard time transitioning to their first day of school, and I had no big emotions from anyone. So we were all very excited to come into the class today. I heard from a first grade EVA teacher that every single one of her students was able to log on, and they were able to mute their mics. Remember, these are kindergartners from last year coming in for their first time to be able to do a Google Meet together. They were submitting work on Seesaw, and she was so impressed with their ability to connect today through their EVA teacher. I had second grade teams talking about how excited kids were to be back at school and making comments even when they were in the building and submitting work through Seesaw, saying things like Yahoo, the first day of school, and that they just love to be back. Third grade, I heard from teachers just that they were able to sit outside and do some learning out there and really be able to connect because of the size of the classrooms as they come back. Really felt like they were able to give students some personal attention. We're so appreciative of the extra time to prepare for students coming back into the building. Fourth graders talked a lot about they participated in a music and PE today at Cornelia, and we're just excited to be back face to face with their specialists. And then we had fifth grade patrol who was out doing patrol today, and also it's a big tradition at Cornelia to have our student leadership team help have kindergartners find their ways to their classrooms. And so they were able to do all those typical first day of school type activities. So overall, a really great day. Teachers felt very good about having students back in the building and felt like everything really felt like a big success today. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. I will just add a little bit. Lisa did a wonderful job. I would say the theme, again, agreeing that today the theme was happy. I also saw teachers like literally cheering. They had their hands up and said, yes, I just love this. You could just see that it was just healthy for everybody. The kids were happy to be there. The teachers were good. It's exactly what we needed. We needed to dive in and get started. So it was great to have 50% of kindergartners, I think, this first week. That I know our kindergarten teachers said that was much easier to help them learn new routines as they went through everything. Surprisingly, kids did really well with their masks. I think that was people's biggest worry. But the kids were very quiet. I think echoing Dr. Schultz's comment about his visit, that it was, I think kids were trained really well at home. So everybody out there, you did a great job. The kids followed everything perfectly. They stayed on the dots wherever they had to go. Hand washing went well. So people are being really flexible and going with it. So I know a couple other of our colleagues had some kind of neat, unique things they wanted to share. At Countryside, the kids were greeted with bubble machines and fun music. So that'd be kind of a neat way to start their day. Highlands, I know, did a lot of work having kids outside, and it was a perfect day for that. Chris at Normandale had mentioned that the kids are already picking up French words, and being a former immersion principal myself, it's amazing how quickly kids pick up language. So I'm sure that was really fun to see. PTOs in general, I can't tell you how supportive they've been with all of us, just providing just the welcoming signs. Some provided meals or masks or shirts, but we're just exceptionally appreciative of the support of this community with our schools. Lunch and breakfast went really well. Transportation was great. Everybody was really timely. The drivers were super friendly with our kids and making sure that they stayed safe. And technology did cooperate for the most part for us, so that was great. but just in general, it was just a warm feeling. You could just see and hear this just out loud laughter today by staff at lunch. And we haven't heard that for a while. So that really sticks with me the most. And we know we have things to, work toward. We want to make sure that hybrid at home experience improves over time. And so I think the theme for that will be iteration. We're going to keep trying things and keep improving, but I don't think we could have asked for a better start.
Thank you, Lisa and Paul, for that fantastic update. Let's shift to middle schools with Dr. Anderson.
Thank you, Dr. Smazel. Good evening, everybody. Chair Allenberg, Superintendent, board members, and community folks tuning in. I'll echo what lots of my colleagues said. Wonderful things happening throughout our middle level buildings the last couple of weeks, particularly today with a full regular schedule, in full swing today at the middle level. I heard Ms. Masika talk about how teachers were thankful for the time to get ready, an unprecedented set of challenges. So thankful to have a little bit of time to prepare, and they've used that time. Many teachers are trying new ways of doing all things, new ways of instruction, while students and are patient in class, they're patient online. Staff are sharing that it feels like quite the juggling act to manage in-person and remote learners. It's a unique challenge at secondary that we're taking on. And that said, we've seen lots of evidence of students being resilient and flexible and patient as we've worked to navigate this thing together. An anecdote that I keep hearing over and over again is students already love reminding staff when their device is muted, and they love giving helpful tech tips to their instructors. And that's a repeated anecdote throughout all grades, and I'm sure not just at the middle level. Again, some snapshot anecdotes. Today, for example, math was chiming in on Google Meet and presenting slides, and then having students go into different breakout rooms and sharing different strategies to make that more successful. I was in every remote teacher space today. They were doing well, working to figure out any glitches and managing. In some cases, this complex model sometimes has a teacher working with EVA kids, hybrid home kids, and kids in person on hybrid model. And finding already some early success. As Principal Domer said, we definitely have things that we want to iterate and improve. And I'm thankful for the feedback that we've gotten so far around that to help us do so. We're super thankful for the wonderful PTO support as well. PTOs just stepping up in this community and supplementing our supplies to give us that extra layer of support has been phenomenal. Just today in band, I know that live streaming was a new thing for them, and Google Meet, in some cases using both of those things together. Google Meet, as you might appreciate, is designed to be a collaborative experience, and live streaming is not a collaborative experience. And we're learning by doing. When is it appropriate for which type of approach? Another snapshot of success, I would say, at the middle level certainly is advisory. Advisory kids are sharing that already that kids and teachers are able to demonstrate that care for each other in that space to help reduce anxiety, provide that social emotional support, both at the start and in some cases at the end of the day in advisory, to give kids a voice, to help them be seen. And these were some of those key things we heard in the spring that would be important to build into our model, creating spaces where kids have voice, where they feel valued, where they are visible, and where they have a chance to be known and get to know their peers, to feel welcomed and to be connected. And I would say that's definitely a middle school success from both today and orientation week last week. Here's just maybe two more things I'd offer that a math teacher sent me this today, and I think it's illustrative of many of our spaces at the middle level. In math today, we tried using Google breakout rooms to encourage learners to talk about math with each other. We believe that talking about the math helps students make meaning of the math, and we don't want to lose that this year. There were a few glitches, but generally students reported that it went really well, and we're going to keep building on that as we continue to do 20 minutes of breakout groups in each class period. Students and families who were online today or in class all were extremely gracious with each other and with me, their teacher, as we work to get this up and running. And I love that anecdote because it talks about what's been required, certainly from staff and to staff inside the system and across the system, providing grace for each other and, understanding that this is a work in progress. One last thing that I'd offer, and again, I think it represents all of our schools, but it's an anecdote from Southview today. We've had an unprecedented effort in hiring staff to make sure we're well staffed, and that includes a late season of hiring paraprofessionals, even maybe later than typical. Today, I heard from a retired college professor who agreed to join us just last week. And she writes, on a complimentary note, I find this school, our schools, exceptionally warm, laid back, with eager staff willing to help with friendliness. The students are extremely well behaved, respectful, and they're ready to learn. The teachers have a natural, open approach and are genuine. Classrooms are beautifully organized, decorated, safe, and clean. Immediately, I felt welcomed and recognized that any question I might have, even finding rooms, would be answered courteously. And in hindsight, there's no doubt that accepting this position was correct and the right opportunity for me. I'm very happy coming to work. And I think that that's pretty indicative of our schools in general, not just the one this person's highlighting. That's been my experience and is consistently true across our system. So those are some snapshots from the middle level today. Again, we want to iterate. We're going to be getting better. You can count on that with the amazing staff that we've got and the amazingly supportive community. And that's what we endeavor to do, but largely a really successful start.
Thank you, Tim, for an excellent middle school update. And coming around the home stretch, we have Mr. Beaton giving us a few words about what's going on at the high school.
Evening, everyone. Chair Allenberg, Superintendent Schultz, members of the board, thanks for the opportunity to visit with you tonight. Just a few updates. We think about those buckets that we have in order to be able to support kids with instruction, provide learning supports for them in need, the operations of how we do school. It has been a very busy summer to get organized for all of this, but I can just say how pleased I am with the startup of school. So thanks for the school board for your support, to giving us time to be able to ramp this up appropriately. I think our teachers are feeling a little bit of deja vu last week after the 8th time they introduced themselves and their course to a very small group of students. But I think it was time well spent for kids to be able to find their classrooms, to feel comfortable in the space, to develop those relationships that they need with staff. That was really the hardest thing to do coming into a school year in a virtual format. Last year in distance learning, we knew kids for almost an entire school year before going into distance learning. So that time was really well spent. I can tell you that this week and today felt a lot like school. It was pretty exciting to have half the students in the building at one time. I can say high school students at Edina are incredible. They followed the leads we asked them to. They were super respectful, responsive. We have not had any issues whatsoever with getting kids to comply with our safety requests. They are part of this, and they really want to keep us open and be there. So super proud of them, and also really thankful to our parents have been really supportive to us, and hopefully just also sending the message that we're in a partnership to be able to keep this up and running between home and school. So I've felt nothing but support from our parent community as well, to be able to make the right choices and not have any kid feel like staying home because you're sick is a penalty in any way. We can keep you up and running academically because it all keeps us up and running. So much appreciated to the community, and it's been a really solid start.
Thank you, Andy. I would also like to add, we have extremely thoughtful and talented principals and site leaders in Edina, and I thank you for being here tonight and providing that update. And as Andy mentioned, a sincere thank you to our families for your partnership, both on the resource side, but also on the ways in which you're helping us take care of our staff, and then the ways in which you've obviously taken care of your children and prepared them for a quality launch for the beginning of the year. And we look forward to continuing to grow that partnership through the year, to continue our problem solving. There's still lots of problems that we'll continue to solve, but we feel like we've had a quality launch. And at this time, I'll turn it back over to Chair Ellenberg to see if the board has any questions, either operationally or for our site leaders, that we can answer.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Randy. I'll turn it back over to the board and see what questions board members have or any comments that board members have.
Can I
Julie?
go? Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to make a comment. I know that there's been such an incredible amount of planning, and that shows in tonight when you guys are giving your updates. And so I just wanted to recognize that for a moment, because in all planning, I know people get anxious for information, as all of us did in this moment. And so I just wanted to say thank you, because I know that we're all pushing each other to figure out what to do and how to do this. And it was very clear tonight. I mean, look at Steve Butner, you having 500 families signed up for that course. I mean, that didn't happen overnight. That was thoughtful and planning. So things like that is just really reassuring as a parent and, of course, as a board member. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Yes, Janie.
Well, I'm going to jump in. So I, at the Shaw household, I had 2 hybrid learners, and we had a lot of things that happened that weren't according to plan. And I just want to say that while it was a little stressful in the moment and felt like a volcano was erupting, I just want to give a huge thank you to Steve's team at the help desk, who can help with technology and very responsive, but also that the teachers had tons of patience with the kids and had some alternate plans for us and some workarounds and stuff. So I just want to say that, like Julie said, it's very apparent the planning that's gone into it. And that we know, I'm sure there are other families out there that had hiccups today. And I want you to know that you weren't alone, and that I feel my kids are still really anxious to start again tomorrow. So that's a good thing. So thank you guys for all your hard work.
Thank you, Janie. Who else is out there? I can't see everyone on my screen right now, so I apologize. So you might just have to butt in with your questions. Owen?
Eric,
there we go.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in. We are having our first in-person meeting in half a year, and it is just a wonderful thing to have the warmth of human companionship, to see people in 3 dimensions. Matt's waving at me.
Yes, it is.
Smiling. I mean, it's just wonderful, and I'm really happy. I mean, here we all are all masked up, but it's wonderful to hear the stories of the site administrators coming back and telling us about the optimistic, upbeat attitude that people are enjoying seeing each other, and that's very encouraging, very heartening. My 2 boys have come back and have felt optimistic, seeing their teachers in the flesh, seeing their friends. And I think that this is an absolutely fantastic way to start. Very good news. And everyone's pulling together, and we're looking forward to hearing more about this. So thank you for your presentations.
Thank you, Owen. Lenny or Matt or Ellen? Sorry, I really can't see anyone. So
yeah, it's Matt. I mean, I have the same feelings as everybody else. I did pick up and drop off today at Concord, and I wish we started giving kids masks 3 years ago, because I've never seen such good behavior, my kids included. Like, everybody following rules and walking in line, and it's amazing. So I thought it was going to be a mess. It was just incredibly well managed. It was easy to know where to pick up. There was space for everybody. So again, it's just really clear that the planning had. So thank you.
if Ellen or Lenny want to talk, feel free. If not, I'll ask my questions. So I actually had a couple of questions. I'm not going to be a downer, but I do have 2 quick questions. Well, actually 3. One, I was wondering, Steve, this is for Director Butner. Do you feel like you have enough staff to answer all the questions that you're getting from a help desk perspective? And I know that I think I asked this last time when we shifted to distance learning in the spring, and I just wanted to make sure that you feel like you're adequately staffed.
Steve, you're muted.
Or he's super tired, so
No.
it could be one of the 2.
Thank you. That'll be part of video conferencing bingo. Steve, you're muted. No, I think every first day of school is when technology shakes out. That's when all of a sudden the best planning that we had, we put in place. All of a sudden a teacher goes to turn something on, or a Chromebook starts up, and all of a sudden it doesn't work. And so we go from maybe 25 to 10% of our staff or our community using the technology to 100%. And we find things break, and we have break fix. And so we have a big year. This year we've had additional challenges. One is now we don't have 10 buildings. We have thousands of buildings, and now we support all those different scenarios and the different permutations. And then the other issue is that we are down technical support in the buildings this year. We have had a number of staff that are working remotely, and we've had some that have transitioned off, and we're looking to bring more staff members back on, so we're back up to 100%. I'd say this is that it's been a tough year. My staff has been incredible, but it has been one of those years where it just feels like the first few days is like there's no way you can get off the phone because it's just always ringing. They do an incredible job of staying positive, being customer friendly, understanding, listening with empathy, and so we'll work at it. I think so to answer your question is it's going to be tough the first few days here to say we have enough staff, but I believe that in the next week or so we are going to plateau out, and I think we will be able to address the concerns and the needs of.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for everything that your team is doing, because I can only imagine how stressful it is to field all of those calls constantly. So hopefully everyone is being kind to our help desk. Yeah. And if you're calling in, be very nice to them.
Yeah. And I'll just put a plug into our media specialists as well. Our media specialists have been fantastic.
Yes.
They always are, and they are a great resource in the buildings. It's just when you have a hybrid or an EVA, now we have just such a large population that's decentralized that makes the challenges of supporting technology that much more difficult.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I just wanted to make one other comment, which I know we're not talking about it tonight, but maybe at some point I think it would behoove us to, as a administrative team, to think about what are those leading indicators that are going to tell us when do we feel we're prepared to either bring more students in, or when do we feel like we need to pull back? And I know that we have data from the state that's going to tell us things, but I also think that this is I don't think that state data is the only thing that is going to be driving that decision. And so I just wanted to comment that I would like you guys to start thinking about as you're experiencing what you're experiencing in your schools, what is that telling you from your professional expertise? Like, what are you seeing, and what do you think some of those indicators are that are going to tell you, yeah, our school is ready for this, or we need to go in this direction? And I say that only listening to some of our concerns about special education. I think we just need to be thinking about, and great, I totally understand it's the first day of school. So I'm sure you're just like, I just got through the first day of school. Why are you telling me this right now? But it is our board meeting, so it's the only chance I get. So I just wanted to make that comment so we can be looking for towards the future. And that being said, I did want to express my sincere thanks to every single one of you on the call, and all of our administrators and teachers and staff members that are not on the call. It's just the work that is gone into delivering this for our students, for our parents. It's just it's amazing. And I know there's going to be bumps in the road. I know that like Janie's family experienced them. My family has. That doesn't mean that you're not producing an outstanding product for a community. And so I wish I could personally thank every single person that is working on this, but I cannot. So I just wanted to offer you my sincerest gratitude to all of you guys. And that's all I have. And I know that we have not heard from Lenny or Ellen, so I just wanted to extend to them to see if they had any questions or comments before we move on to our consent agenda.
So I'll jump in here. I do want to thank everybody for all the work that they've done in starting school. So I want to note, for the people in the community, the hardest model to start is the hybrid model. So it would have been a lot easier for us to go, okay, we're just going to do distance learning. It's much simpler. It's less expensive. It would have been easier for us, but it wouldn't be consistent with what we're trying to accomplish. So I think people need to understand that delivering the hybrid model is ridiculously complex. And the secondary has even more issues, I think, than the primary at times. So I think the community needs to understand that. And I want to thank everybody for all the work that they've done on that. At the same time, I would echo what Erica said, which is, okay, so once we get our feet under us, what are the criteria that we can look at for expanding, for example, with special ed or the elementary level? No offense to secondary, but I am sort of a little more focused on the youngest kids and what we can do to bring more of them into school, and also make sure that we have systems in place to gauge not just whether we have implemented, but whether the implementation is successful in the sense that we're seeing the growth that we're hoping to see from our kids. And, that's a lot to ask for, given how much I've noted how complex, but that's kind of where my mind is. So thank you very much, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lenny. I don't see. Oh, there you are. Sorry, Ellen. Okay.
Hi. Thank you. I want to thank all staff. This was a very good and informative presentation, and I can appreciate all your work. I actually can keep this very short because I completely agree with what Lenny and Erica just said about the types of questions that I would like answered at our next board meeting, or for us to be discussing at our next board meeting. I think that meeting is the meeting that, at least I've been told, the board members are going to be asking more of those types of questions. And so I'm going to keep this short and acknowledge that this is the first day of school, and there's a whole lot of energy that goes toward making the first day of school happen. It sounded great from what I heard. And so I'm going to keep that energy up and look forward to our next meeting where we'll get more into the details. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. And thank you, I just wanted to acknowledge really fast Randy and John that have been leading the district in this. I've had meetings with both of them on Saturdays and Sundays, and I know I'm only meeting with % of the time. And also our principals have just been going above and beyond, working crazy hours. So thank you so much to all of you guys and all of our lead team. I can't say thank you anymore, so I will stop and I will move on to our consent agenda. So thank you all for being
Thank you, Chair Ellenberg, and thank you, school board members, for your guidance in this. This is complicated, but we're off to a great start, and I think as a result of that start, whatever we pivot to will be done well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'm going to move on to our consent agenda. Is there anything that anyone would like to remove from the consent agenda? So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Is there? Okay. We will now vote by roll call to approve the consent agenda.
Allenberg,
Aye.
Fox,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Michelson,
Aye.
Shaw,
Aye.
Wallen Friedman.
Aye.
The consent agenda has been approved. We're going to move on to our items up. And for our first two items up for discussion, the first is the renewal of the technology levy. And we discussed this briefly back, I believe, in late June. But the director of media and technology, Steve Buettner, is back here to further discuss this issue with us.
And I just want to add that this is placed here outside the work session because the work session was full. So this is really the board's discussion about this. This will come back once we get closer to the decision that is needed to renew the technology levy or go out for the referendum. We would bring it back again for subsequent work session and then possible action. So, Steve, do you want to kick this off?
Sure. Again, good evening, Chair Allenberg, board members, Dr. Schultz. It's a privilege to come and speak before you again this evening to talk a little bit about the technology levy. I'd like to provide a little bit of background and then also talk a little bit about where we are with it and some potential thinking going forward. And again, as Dr. Schultz mentioned, this is just the start of a discussion. This is not the end of a discussion. And I additional discussions, not only with this board, but leadership in the school system and also our community going forward. It's been a number of years, and so I thought we'd go back in time a little bit to understand what we've kind of done with the technology and this technology level with a little bit of comparison of then and now. And so when we started before the technology levy, the maximum speed on our network was 100 megabits, and now it's 2 gigs in and out for the internet, and we consistently use that in a day. We had only 3,400 devices, and that was quite a few. Now we have 11,000 devices that the district owns, and we have close to another 6,000 devices that come on our network on any given day. So we have quite a few devices that are on our network. Our wireless infrastructure went from 110 devices to 520 devices in order to accommodate that wireless. And it has been a huge monumental shift from everything being plugged into the wall to anywhere, anytime, learning via wireless technology. I remember coming here and we had 5 physical servers. Now we have 117 virtual servers. We had 5 terabytes of storage, 20 terabytes of server storage. And our file storage for documents was 1 terabyte. We have 21 terabytes. A lot of that is in the Google Cloud system. And so we've leveraged our cloud-based systems like Google and Microsoft Office's OneDrive. That fits 23 million files that we have in our Google file storage. I don't know how many we had that back in 2011, but I'm sure it wasn't that many. Our learning platform was at the time Edline and Moodle, and now we have Schoology and Seesaw, and that's E through 12. education. We use it actually for adult education as well. And just the amount of information that we have to move between systems. We had 5 third-party systems. Now we have over 35. So we're constantly needing to move user information, be concerned about the data privacy, and be concerned about the security of that data information. So it's gotten much more complex. Some of those highlights is from 2010 or 2011. The iPad really didn't exist back then. The district adopted Google Apps for Education, and we talked about the 23 million documents that we have in that. Chromebooks weren't introduced. At the time, Windows 8 was the operating system for the district. Now we're at Windows 10. Instagram was just started, and Snapchat didn't even exist when our last levy referendum came out. We've gone through 3 learning management systems. We started at Edline, we went to Moodle, and now we're at Schoology and Seesaw. We have a brand new student information system where we did convert student information systems, and that's one of those things that you hardly ever do. We did it. We rolled out a new HR, business, and finance system to support our HR and our finance department. Our HVAC, or the way we control the temperature in all of our buildings, and our climate has been completely automated now and runs on our network. And we've, thanks for part of the levy, facilities levy, we upgraded our security system. So as you see, we've done quite a bit in those 10 years. However, the current reality is that the current technology levy does expire at the end of the 2021-2022 school year. It is at $6.5 million a year. And as I mentioned, it really is pervasive in what we do. Technology touches every portion of our work. And not only does it touch our finance system and touch our HR system, but most importantly, it touches our instruction. Make sure that our teachers can be incredibly efficient and productive through the use of technology tools, but also that our students can demonstrate mastery and understand and be able to leverage all kinds of content that they normally may not would been able to access from technology. If you look at our current spending on technology, you'll see that our staffing and professional development is a large portion of our technology levy, which is fine. That means that those staff and that training is used to help support, maintain, and leverage the technology tools that are happening in the school system. So that is ensuring that we have enough folks to be able to support the technology, but most importantly, that there's a number of staff that actually use the technology. Our hardware is the next biggest portion, and our software, and it goes through that. And like I said, it's not done. And so as we think about the technology, at the end of this technology, we must think about the future. And the future is truly to continue that excellence that schools has put in through the investment in technology and leveraging technology where it's appropriate and mitigating the negative aspects of the technology. We like to say using that technology when it's the best tool and supporting our investment by maintaining and replacing our current technology. If we don't replace our technology in a few years, it will become obsolete and we will have increased problems with it. And again, that technology encompasses staff, software, hardware, network, and increasingly curricular materials. And so when we talk about a technology levy, we're not just talking about the things that it purchases, but how do we support, how do our end users use that technology, the software, the maintenance agreements that we need to do in order to make sure that the technology is supported, the network that all of our technology runs on, is all facets of the technology levy that we can't lose sight of. If you look at our technology level compared to our neighbors, you'll see that we are right in the middle of the road between our neighbors, Hopkins being the most and St. Louis is being underneath us. I do know that Minnetonka most likely is also undertaking, investigating a technology renewal as well, that we'll continue to maintain right in the middle of these school districts in technology levying and asking our community to support technology through a levy. Here's where we're seeing increasingly big demand for our funds in the technology levy funds. 10 years ago, we would purchase textbooks, and those textbooks would last for a number of years, and we'd put those in classrooms. And every year, the new students would come in, and we'd check out those textbooks to the students, and that's what they'd use. They bring it to school every day. And if it got damaged, we'd buy a few every year, and then we would track them at the end of the year and get them brought back and then recycle those. And we still are doing that. But technology or our textbooks isn't only our textbooks. It's increasingly digital content. It's access to those textbooks in a digital format so that we could load them into our learning management systems, such as Schoology and Seesaw, so that like this year when we're in a COVID pandemic and half of our student population are at home at any given time, they have access to a digital version of that content. Or if they're at school, they have a version of that content as well. It's things like having rich multimedia resources that are connected to those textbooks. So seek understanding of the information that's being taught in different ways. They can watch rich videos. They can do assessments. Leverage 3D manipulatives where they can actually spin things down in a browser and look at hearts and look at physics and atoms in different ways. And so we're seeing a big need for the transformation of the textbooks as well, and starting to think of those not as just analog books, but analog and digital content. That would mean increasing the tech levy closer to $7 million in order to address that gap that we have in order to purchase textbooks and digital textbooks so that we can continue to support that transformation. Again, that does not mean that we would stop purchasing textbooks or analog versions of the textbooks. It would be a this and that. And so we would have the analog textbooks, but also we would have the rich multimedia resources and the digital content. Unfortunately, the digital content isn't a one-time purchase, but rather a subscription service, hence the additional ask for money in the capital levy. If you looked at that spending, here would be a spending, and so that you would see under curricular resources, that would go up, and so we'd have that money in that. Technology and information system support would still, which is staffing, would still remain roughly the same. Our hardware would go up a little bit, and we would move the money around. Here's the numbers broken down again so that you can see those numbers in a grid. And if it was to go to $7 million a year, and again, I'm not suggesting that that's what we're agreeing to tonight, but that's a spot to start our conversation. That would be roughly a $500,000 increase on the levy, which would mean this is the estimated tax increase for homes. So at a $300,000 home, it would be $12 additional a year. For a $600,000 home, it would be $26 a year. And for a $900,000 home, it would be $42 a year. So again, it's not a large increase. We're really trying to be good stewards of that investment the community has, but there would be an additional cost if we were to approve eventually a levy at the $7 million. Some key dates that we want to take into effect is that if we were to go out for renewal, we have a number of times that we could do that. The first option would be February 9th of 2021 or next year. If we did that, we'd need to get started right away on getting ready for that. We'd have to have discussions about that, like we're having this evening in the board discussion. We would need to adopt a resolution if we were going to do that, and we would then need to make sure that between that time and February 9th that we would be communicating to our community the why behind an additional technology levy and what that is purchasing it and the impact. Another option would be to do it in May. Again, if you backwards mapped, it would be we would do the referendum planning in the fall. There'd be a January board discussion. February 8th would be the last day to be able to adopt a resolution to go out with a technology levy. And election day would be May 11th. I just want to point out that both on the February and the May date, if we would be the only ballot question, then associated costs for the election falls on the school district 100%. The third next year from November, and so again we put those dates in those as well, and that would be more in line with when other elections happen and other referendum happen. And I'll stop here and answer any questions that you may have.
Steve, what is the, do you know what the actual cost is to run, you said for an election that this would be the only thing on the ballot?
I'm working with our Director of Finance, John Tope, to try to find that out. And so we've made inquiries, but we don't know exact amount yet.
Okay, thank you.
And that's not to say there wouldn't be something else on those ballots, but if it is, we would incur the cost.
Okay.
Yeah, I had I had the same question, and then on top of that, I was just curious if we have data available on the turnout. Like, what is the turnout for? I was kind of calling it a singleton election. What is the turnout for a singleton election in the past compared to when it comes through kind of in the general election and here, right? So it's just interesting to look at that to see what Edina turns out. I mean, we always have high voter turnout in our city, but that would be something I think that we should look at when we're talking about the options. I think that would be important data to consider. And then I have a question, Steve. You had said that when you're talking about the increase of digital content in textbooks, you feel like that's more of an industry thing that's happening, right? It's not just Edina saying, okay, we're going to add all this extra stuff in. I mean, it's kind of the way the industry is moving in terms of getting up-to-date content for students. Is that correct? Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, the textbooks are fantastic, but they fall out of date very quickly. And so textbook manufacturers, what they've done is they've gone to digital content because one, they can, when content's changed or when they've made a mistake, because they do find mistakes in textbooks and things like that, that content can be updated. And it also provides just a number of additional ancillary products we can use. So again, one of the most incredible things is my volunteer. Well, I used to volunteer this year. I don't know with COVID, but I used to volunteer at Southview, and I used to work with the students on math. And it was incredible to be able to have the textbook there, but when we were stuck on a concept, to be able to bring up the electronic version of that, and it would help us decode the step-by-step in solving mathematical equations, but also allow us to give us a different look or a different approach. And so maybe the textbook talked about one approach to doing a mathematical equation, but they might have a different one or use different examples. And so it's just that way to be able to approach concepts that are learning or knowledge or those important standards from different points of view, from different modalities, from different multimedia, that just adds a value add. Unfortunately, those are generally in a subscription format, meaning that you pay every year for how many students are accessing those tools, and so they have costs associated with them on an annual basis as opposed to a perpetual one that you find in the textbook.
No, that makes sense. I mean, it sounded like when you were explaining it's moving from a want to a need, whereas
absolutely
progressing in just the way things work in education. So I just wanted to call that out. And then I have one other question I wanted to ask. So In terms of how COVID and what we've had to do with technology in the last 6 months, I think a lot about privacy and security, and I know that's always been at the forefront of our work, right? So does this levy account for that? Like with the additional, like you had said, like, we've got people, we're not generalized anymore, we've got people in homes. I just didn't know, is there any impact to the levy, the technology levy that is COVID related and more specifically security related because of that? I don't know if that question's clear.
Yeah, that's a great question. And at this point, we've taken security on in our department for everyone's role. And so all the way from the director's position, I work very closely with Donna Roper, who is the director of research, to ensure data privacy and data security. You'll see that we have 37 additional systems that we have to be careful of, but we kind of just take that on as our work to make that work. And so it is more difficult as we bring on more systems. What we try to do is work smarter. And so we leverage data standards like the IMS Global Standard, and we use a data privacy framework that came out of Minnesota and the state of California to try to make sure that we are holding the vendors accountable for data privacy. So what I would say is that bundled into that support for systems is that additional privacy and data security practices that we need to continue to work on.
Okay, that's super helpful. Okay, I would say out of the gate, if you look at the options, I think option A is out. That's just my own opinion. I think the timing is way, way too tight to try and launch anything before the presidential election would be just not a smart use of resources. We're fighting through a lot of noise to do that. So
thank you.
So yeah, Julie, that's a great segue, which I was just going to ask Steve, is just to frame this conversation is, are you looking for feedback tonight from the board as to which of these options that the board is interested in? Is that something you would like from us tonight or at a later date? I just wanted to get a better understanding of.
That's great. So I think my message, my elevator pitch or my message is that the technology levy is ending. I think it's essential that we renew the technology levy in order to sustain Edina Public Schools. In addition, I think we're going to need a little bit more funds, not a lot, in order to address the increasing costs of electronic curricular. And then I'm just providing a backwards map of those three options. And so those are the times that would work. And that would be discussions that we probably want to have. If option A isn't going to work, we have a little more time, but I want to just put that in front of the board to let you know that if we pick an option, it might have a timeline that we just need to be cognizant of.
Okay, so basically, if the board wants to go with option A, you need to know as soon as possible.
That's correct.
Is my understanding. Okay, thank you. I want to turn it over to Owen because I believe you have a question.
Yeah, then I'll turn it over to you, Lenny. I've got a couple questions here, Steve. When does the current levy expire?
Next year is the final year, so the 2021-2022 school year.
So does it have a hard and fast date, like
30th, 2022?
Okay, so that informs the when the election would be, and so pushing it to next fall, coinciding with the school board election, would be past the date of its expiration. So we would want to have it before then.
No, you could do the election next fall.
That would be the latest, though, correct?
That would be the latest you could do it.
Yeah, that would be the latest date.
Yeah. Is that right, John?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. That's correct. The latest date is November of next year.
Right.
Okay, so then that's a possible cost savings to us. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
So
yes.
Now, another way of looking at the $6.5 million.
Did you have another question, Owen?
Hopefully you hear me.
His mic cut out.
Oh, I'm okay.
He's talking.
Lenny, why don't you go ahead, Lenny, and then John Schultz, can you please let Owen know his mic cut out?
Yeah.
It might be the mute button on the side.
Okay.
Okay, so
Lenny, why don't you go ahead?
So one of the questions was answered, but Steve, this would be a 10-year renewal, correct?
That is correct. It'd be a 10-year renewal.
And so one of the things that I would want to know is you kind of pegged the number of 7 million. If we went for 7.5 million, what? And I'm not looking for the answer tonight. What I want you to do is think about, which is if you had 7.5 million rather than 7, what difference would that make in terms of the provision of the services that we provide? So again, I'm not looking for the answer tonight, but when I look at the numbers and I look at it's $42 for a $600,000 house for a yearly increase. I just want to make sure that we're not cutting it too tight, because it does seem to me that expenses go up, and this has proven to be a good source of expansion. The other thing is, I know you're not asking for feedback, but I would be inclined towards the May date. It enables us to, with some flexibility in the event that for some reason the referendum doesn't go well, we could still come back in November. We have had May referendums before. We do have data about the turnout. It actually was relatively close in May to a November turnout where it's just a school board election. So May does allow us to touch the people who have left, for example, for the winter. They're typically back by early May. So from my perspective, I would look towards a May one. I would try to do an analysis of what would be additional benefits we could get at 7.5 million versus 7 million. And that's where I'm at.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lenny. Turn it back over to Owen.
Something else I was going to say is that we were at 6.5 million 9 years ago, and we're talking 7 million now. And if you adjust for inflation, it's probably pretty close. And so in terms of real dollars, it's actually not an increase. Anybody challenge me on that one. So that's how I'm looking at that. The other thing is, I'm trying to remember what it was like 9 years ago. Did we have the expectation that the technology levy was a one-time levy and then we would not renew it? Or how had it been pitched to the community? Is there going to be some apprehension, hey, you hit us up and it was a one-time deal and now you're coming back again? Are we facing any kind of headwinds with that? Can you address that, Steve?
Certainly. So I was here at that time and kind of proud to still be an Edina public school employee. And it was a renewal. It was a renewal at that time. So it actually went from 1 million to 4.5 million. And John Tope, I know you're on the line. You can help me with this. It is indexed. It's a percentage the value of homes. So as property values ebb and flow, also the amount of revenue that is generated from the technology levy goes up or down from that. And so at the time, you're right, Owen, it wasn't $6.5 million 10 years ago, it was 4.5, and now it's gone up over time. John Tope, are you there?
Yes, I am. Yeah, you're exactly right, Steve. And that's the correct answer, Owen. It was $4.5 million. We asked the voters for that for 10 years, so we had to put a $45 million price tag on that. But again, knowing that the capital projects or tech levy is one of the only ones that's based on a tax rate of 5.56 to 451, then that can go up or down, like Director Buettner said. You know, in 2009 and 10, we actually had a couple of years there where the tech levy would have went down because our actual net tax capacity went slightly down. But overall, it's grown from 4.5 million to that 6,477,000 that we'll be looking at later on in the 2021 property tax levy later tonight.
Okay, so our $500,000 increase is in real dollars. It's not nominal. Okay. Right. Okay, good clarification. What was our passing percentage 9 years ago?
72%.
72%. And since it's a renewal, do you know what it was the time before that?
That I don't know. I don't have that data.
Okay, so it passed pretty handily.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So, and I can tell you, I think I was running for school board at the time that the tech levy was up, but there was definitely an understanding that this was 10 years and would then be renewed. This was not, we were going to fund, and somehow after that, it wouldn't happen again.
So I just have a question and then a comment that I see Julie and Matt also wanted to weigh in. Steve, if you don't know the answer to this, it's totally fine. You can get back to me. But I was wondering if you knew, we use we have some human resources and capital in the district that we use for things like helping parents with technology, for special education services and 504 planning. It's my understanding that a lot of times those come out of special education budget, sometimes general education budget. Are those things that can actually be allocated through the technology levy, or can they not? And if you don't know the answer, that is totally fine. But I was just wondering if that a notion of having additional resources in our district for the usage of assistive technology for our students, if that is something that we can allocate specific budget towards within our technology levy, is my basic question.
I'll work with Jeff to find out the exact answer. What I'd say is that we work very close with Jeff Jorgensen, and in a number of situations we have partnered. Learning Ally is a great example. That is our ability to provide books in different formats, audio and transcribed books. And so part of that is funded through the tech levy, and part of it is funded through special education. So we currently do that. I'm sure there's a lot of needs that we probably could investigate to see their alignment that we could partner on.
Okay, because I'd be really interested in that, because I think it seems like that this could be a great avenue to increase our ability to provide services for parents and support for parents from a human resources perspective for that. And then the only other comment, I wanted to basically echo Lenny's comment and Julie's comment. I think November is way too early at this point, and with everything going on in the district, to do a levy. I think the winter, we have a lot of people that leave in the winter, so I lean towards doing this in May, pending what we find out about the cost of it, or November. So those really, in my mind, are the only two viable options from my perspective for this levy. And I'll leave it with that, and then turn it over to Matt, who I believe had a comment, and then Julie.
Great, thanks. I'll be quick. Just from a financial perspective, looking at all budgeting and use of resources, I think the tech levy is one of the clearest ways that we pass through benefit to learning, security, infrastructure, and continued growth for all the students. You can see on the bar chart that Steve presented, to remain and stay competitive with our peers in the surrounding Lake District. It's an important source of revenue and application for I agree with the May timeline, and if not November. And I think because it's a time to prepare the community for why we're doing it and what it means. Again, it passed very overwhelmingly last time when there was clear understanding of what it is. And I always want to be sensitive to any kind of tax increase to people, especially during times when there's more uncertainty around the economy. But when you think about the benefit of having the schools where they are and the application of those resources in our kids, I'm very supportive of trying to make sure this is properly understood and then approved in that early spring timeframe. So those were my comments. But thank you, Steve, for the thoughtful and thorough presentation and all the work you guys are doing now, especially given the challenging hybrid model.
Thank you.
Ellen, do you want to go? And then I'll turn it over to Julie.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I wanted to hear from John Schultz about his recommendation with respect to the tech levy.
So I think everything that's been reported tonight has been I really resonate with. The tech levy, as John and Steve indicated, as you can see even this year, that it does become a source of a more flexible source of dollars to engage students in different technology as well as different curriculum. So I think it's I would definitely recommend doing the exploration that Lenny suggested. And I would also resonate with the May date. I think we have some work to do with regards to surveying our community and asking the community what their thoughts are.
Thank you, John.
Julie?
Yeah, I just, Steve, did our tech levy right now, does it cover staff? DMTS staff also?
Yes, the tech levy covers hardware. It covers the infrastructure like the internet costs, the support and repair costs for infrastructure, some security hardware, the security hardware. And then it also supports the maintenance, support, and administrative of a number of our technology systems and tools in the assessment. So things like our department, the help desk, being able to support people using technology, the person who manages the servers, our network administrator, but also our technology paraprofessionals in the buildings and to support those teachers using the technology, our help desk when people call, and then also it helps support a portion of some staff as well. For example, our media specialists that are always helping the teachers understand and adapt and leverage technology. And so it covers in some situations 100% of people's salaries, and in other situations a portion of their salary that is justifiable because of what they do.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. And Lenny, when you mentioned that about May, that's exactly where my original comment I was thinking too. I think that's the right timing. Looking on the last referendum, I think that it's a good time frame outside of another election. I think is important too. But I'd be curious what the community thought. So I think some more data would be helpful.
Thank you, Julie. Janie?
Super quick question. When are we slated to talk about it next?
We don't have that slated next, but I'll get back to you guys on that.
Let's put it down sometime in February. Is that if we did it in May?
No, I thought it was we would talk about it in October.
October? Okay.
To at least get the groundwork set and.
Yeah, so if we're going to do May, it would be fall referendum planning, January board discussion. Last day to approve is February 8th to adopt a resolution.
Yeah.
Okay.
We need to be ready.
So we have some time.
Steve, I just wanted to, so kind of piggybacking off of what Julie said, I think Matt made mention of this too, is that it's very valuable to hear what this covers, and that it's not that go to, oh, this just means more kids on more computers. And I know that I also want to remind people that we have in our strategic plan an opportunity to really look at kids' technology use, and that we want to make sure that people understand that we are both interested in making sure it's a healthy plan, and also that the need for technology goes above and beyond just buying devices and getting kids in front of a computer. So I also am in total agreement with an attempt for May, knowing that we've got November of the following year as a backup. So
thank you, Janie. So Steve and John, it sounds like you have majority of board members saying that we should shoot for May, pending getting some additional data from the community as well as some cost information. So I think that you can move forward with that, and then we can regroup as to when we should talk about this again as a board.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And we'll work. John Tope, Dr. Schultz, and I will meet, regroup, and start putting together a more formalized plan for discussion.
Great. Thank you so much, Steve. Sorry, Director Butner. Thank you. We're now going to move on to review policies 407 and 408, and I will turn it over to Board Member Michelson, who's our policy chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Erica, we have two policies for discussion today. They are both in the 400 series, which we are going through this year as part of our annual review of a policy group. This is the personnel set of policies. The first policy is 407, the employee's right to know exposure to hazardous substances. And this is essentially a distillation of a series of state statutes. The proposal is to make some grammatical changes and to add a substantive addition to include in bloodborne pathogens, hepatitis C virus, HCV. The second policy that we have for review today is 408, litigation involving or subpoenas of a school district employee. Again, we have grammatical changes, and we do have a couple of substantive amendments. One is involving employees cannot serve court papers on school property. And the other is that employees, if they are finding themselves under criminal charges, have got to report that to the HR department. A word on that is there was some concern in the policy committee that that would be a transgression of personal liberties to have to confess that, but mandatory background checks on our employees anyway, so that's washed out. So I turn it over to my fellow board members for questions or discussion. If there is any at 9:00 at night here.
They are fairly straightforward because they are, like I would say, they are statutory in nature. And Nikki provided us with the information on these, but so I have no comments other than the one I just made.
So with no comments, then we will just move that forward to action for our October meeting then. And then I turn it back to you, Chair Allenberg.
Thank you. We're now going to move to our action items. And first up, we have Director of Business Services, John Tope, who's going to be on our first two items. Do I have a motion to approve the property tax levy pay 21?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Director Tope, is there anything that you wanted to review with us regarding this action item?
Yes, Chair Allenberg. Just a couple of quick items. This is a 45-page document. Most of it's the actual property tax levy. That's very detailed. The reports that we are getting from MDE right now, and I shared this with the Finance Committee, are not reflective of where the property tax levy is going to be at right now. Reports from the state are showing a decrease of 12 or 13%. That's not going to happen. And on page 2 of the 45-page document, I have highlighted in each some areas of the pay 21 levy that are going to be changing in subsequent levy runs. One of them is the market value referendum. We're going to have some adjustments upward on that. The integration levy is not being reflected properly. I'm trying to reflect the proper number for that in the peach. And then also our long-term facilities maintenance. If you recall, the board approved the 10-year plan at the June meeting. We have two components to the long-term facilities maintenance. One is a bond issue that's coming up this spring. And then the other one is a pay-as-you-go levy amount. And I'm trying to reflect approximately what that would be as well. The other two items are listed on the next page, page 3 of 45, and they have to do with our debt service. We are going to be refinancing bonds here with an October 7th sale date. That's actually going to bring our initial general obligation bond debt service levy down slightly by about $120,000. And in previous levy issues, yes? Oh, can I go ahead?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, okay. And then in previous levy issues, we have reserved some of the funds in our debt service fund balance to pay for the initial interest payments for those issuances. And so that reduction for debt excess, I actually pulled that down by about $500,000. So that would actually increase the levy by the same amount. So we'll have some debt excess, but it just won't be as high as the actual levy document is showing right now. And those are the 5 substantial changes. And if you look down at the bottom of page 3 with those changes that are going to be, they should be very close. The Edina district taxpayers would be looking at about a 2.61% increase. So fairly reasonable, especially in these times, I think.
Lenny?
So I just want to say I support this. I mean, we do typically approve this at this stage, and in my understanding, it's a tentative approval. We'll come back with a final one later on. But
yes,
like whenever I can see a number less than 3 as a starting point, that's always nice. So from my perspective, go ahead and accept this, and then we'll see what the final one looks like later on.
Right, and I think that's a good point, Director Wallen-Friedman. We typically want to certify at the maximum just to take into account all these adjustments that are not properly being reflected right now.
Are there any other questions about this issue before we move to vote? Okay. We will now vote by roll call to approve the 20Pay21 property tax levy.
Allenberg,
Aye.
Fox,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Michelson,
Aye.
Shaw,
Aye.
Wallen-Friedman.
Aye.
The 20Pay21 property tax levy is approved. We'll now move on to the fund transfers. Do I have a motion to approve the end transfers for fiscal 1920?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Director Tope?
Yes, Chair Allenberg, Superintendent Schultz, members of the board. We did talk about this briefly in the board workshop. The district administration is recommending 3 fund transfers. One of them is a transfer from our staff development restricted fund balance to our unassigned fund balance in the general fund of $116,740. Also recommending an additional transfer from our restricted for operating capital account of $2 million. And the third transfer that we're recommending is that we transfer $100,000 from the restricted for school readiness fund in the community education fund to the restricted for community education fund balance. These transfers are all allowed by special law that was passed in the spring of 2020 to give districts flexibility for financing for COVID-related expenses.
Thank you, Director Tope. Director Michelson, I see that you have some questions.
No, actually.
Oh, sorry. Director Tope, I was wondering if you could spend a moment to explain some of the investments our district is making to run both the hybrid and the EVA model that are listed in the information section.
Yeah, there's a number of things that we're doing, whether it's personal protective equipment, providing Tier 1 childcare Monday through Friday. We're also doing some investing in technology to beef that up. And we're also doing some additional expenditures in teaching and learning in the research, evaluation, and assessment area. And we're also doing some investing in the mental health services area as well. I think that one was $185,000. So 4 or 5 different investments of different amounts, but investing fairly heavily in those, and then also investing fairly heavily in our paraeducators. And in that report, I think that listed, what the investments were for kindergarten, para in each kindergarten class, 1 per grade level per school. At the rest of the elementaries, grades 1 through 5, and then also some paraeducators at the secondary, and then a couple of FTEs for EVA, Edina Virtual Academy teachers.
Thank you. And then it's the state has mandated school districts to provide Tier 1 childcare. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. And at this point in time, we are not being reimbursed for those expenses, or are we?
No, we're not.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate that. Are there any other questions for regarding this topic? Okay. We will now vote by roll call to approve the end of year transfers for fiscal 1920.
Allenberg,
Aye.
Fox,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Michelson,
Aye.
Shaw,
Aye.
Wallen-Friedman.
Aye.
The end of year transfers have been approved. We now have Director Buettner up again for the next 2 items. Do I have a motion to approve the purchase of Chromebooks?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So you're our frequent customer tonight, Director Buettner. Do you have any information you wanted to provide to us regarding the purchase of these Chromebooks?
Again, good evening, Board, Superintendent Dr. Schultz, and community. As Finance Director John Tope mentioned previously in the previous action item, there is additional costs associated with doing hybrid and COVID learning. We worked on identifying the needs, and Chromebooks and devices were one of those items that were eligible for expending. What we're doing is accelerating the purchase of 1,900 Chromebooks that will go at each of our grade levels, high school, middle school, and elementary, to ensure that our students have functioning and working devices. The unfortunate reality is that Chromebooks and other devices are on international shortages, and so we're coming to you this evening to purchase those to ensure that we get them in a timely manner. And the funding would be through the CARES Act dollars.
Thank you, Director Buettner. Are there questions for Director Buettner about this purchase? Great. We'll now vote by roll call to approve the purchase of Chromebooks.
Allenberg,
Aye.
Fox,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Michelson,
Aye.
Shaw,
Aye.
Wallen-Friedman.
Aye.
The purchase of Chromebooks is approved. Do I have a motion to approve the purchase of interactive classroom panels?
So moved.
Second.
Do I have a second? Thank you. Director Buettner.
Yes, again, good evening. This interactive panels is actually a misnomer. I should have called it the wonderful device in the front of the classrooms. And so in our elementary schools, this would retrofit 3 of our elementary schools to have the large interactive panel, upgrade the wiring in the classrooms so that there'd be parity between all 6 elementary schools. As you are walking around your elementary schools at the start of the school, you may have seen these new interactive panels in the classrooms in some of our buildings. And so this would be to finish off the other 3 elementary schools. This not only does it provide interactivity so that the teacher can project their screens to hybrid or distance learning students, but it also allows them to have wireless technology so they can move around the classrooms and keep socially distanced while they're doing that work as well. So this would be the ability for us to implement those last 3 schools for interactive projection systems, upgrading the wiring, and putting in additional Chromebooks in their classrooms.
Thank you, Director Buettner. Are there questions about this for Director Buettner?
I just have one quick question. Steve, are there other schools that will need to be upgraded shortly thereafter? So this speaks to the elementaries, but what about our middle and high school? Are they all up to date on this kind of classroom management technology that we would need for the new way of learning and teaching?
So that's a great question. And so we are on a cycle for reviewing and refreshing the AV technology in the classrooms. As part of the facilities referendum, we did look at the high school and middle schools and upgraded that technology. So as you look at the 4 or 5 year refresh cycle, the high schools have been addressed. This would bring the elementary schools up to parity on the AV wiring. But in another few years, and again, this is the need for the technology levy referendum, in another few years, we will need to go through our secondary schools and upgrade them. I don't know what that technology looks like, but I suspect it won't look like what we have today in our classrooms, and it'll be something new.
Okay.
Any other questions? Julie?
I just have one. Yeah, just a quick clarification question, Steve. So you, I know that this purchase, the interactivity in the classroom is obviously with the new learning models with COVID, it's kind of precipitating this. But I just wanted to ask you, you see that, do you feel that we have a need for this beyond COVID? So this purchase, it has a life after COVID is my question.
Indeed. That's a great question. And so Dr. Sean Beaverson, who is the digital learning specialist at the elementary, spent a 2-year process of working with our teachers to understand what is a future-ready elementary classroom. One of the things that we were able to do is we had, in some buildings, we had smart boards, some buildings we had Promethean, and some we didn't have any. And so in conjunction with this physical hardware has been a methodical process of converting our content in a universal design using Google Slides. And so this content now will be able to be leveraged not only in one elementary school, but across 6 elementary schools. And so when you hear like Mark Carlson saying that he's working with teachers to develop interactive and manipulative curriculum, that'll be able to be let through these screens and used in all of our classes.
Amazing. Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying.
Ellen?
Yeah, and can you speak a little bit to the professional development needed to train teachers and how to use these whiteboards?
It's a great point, Ellen. Thank you for bringing that up. Nothing we do is without professional development, and so we make sure that we're bringing our teachers along. Again, I'll just reference that we worked for over almost 2 years to make sure that this idea was going to work with our teachers, and so we took input from our teachers, our elementary principals, and one of the biggest facets of that was ensuring that there was professional development. That's not one and done, that's ongoing. And so this year it's been a little bit of a challenge, I would say that, because we've been in distance learning, but what we have done is work with some core teachers at each of our buildings that have been our early adopters and our mentors. We've developed content that can be delivered in video screencasts, and we videotaped our early mentors. And what we asked our teachers to do is let's get started this year. And so our whole goal at the start of this year was making sure that our teachers started the year with a feeling of a comfort level they could do with exactly what they could do with the technology. And now interspersed throughout the year will be additional learning opportunities for those teachers to take at where they're at the current level and keep bringing them further along on the integration and leveraging of these tools. So we started with training over the summer. We have early adopters in all of our elementary buildings. We've developed content that all of our elementary teachers have accessed, and then we'll continue to circle back and move our teachers from where they're at to where they want to be.
Any other questions? Okay, we will now vote by roll call to approve the purchase of the interactive classroom panels.
Allenberg,
Aye.
Fox,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Michelson,
Aye.
Shaw,
Aye.
Mullen Friedman,
Aye.
The purchase of the interactive classroom panels is approved. Do I have a motion to approve the superintendent goals? Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. So I believe in August, we met and reviewed the attached goals for the 2021 school year. So I apologize we didn't have time to get to this in the work session prior to this meeting. So if there's anything that we wanted to discuss or comment on the superintendent goals before we vote on it, then feel free to discuss right now. But I know we've seen this a couple of times at our various work sessions. So I'll just turn it over to the board. Ellen?
Yeah, I'm looking at the plan, and in general, it is exactly what we've talked about in the work session. So I only have two comments about how things settled out as they were written out, and they have to do with item number 6, the strategic plan. And I see his goal is to launch a literacy study. And I will say that I am getting, if that's all we're going to get, I'm getting a little bit impatient. So I would like to see this goal be a little bit different than that we're going to see a study in February. And I'm wondering what other people think about that.
So I read that as not a study, but maybe maybe we can get clarification from what John believes that to be. But I look at it as the study for the purpose of developing a literacy plan, which includes building upon current work and practices in literacy, February 2021. So I think that seems like that timing is reasonable to have a plan laid out. That's I don't know if John can if you could clarify what your thought is on that. I don't see it. I see it more than just a study.
Great. And if that is the way it is, that we will have the plan and not the study, but we will have a plan in February of 2021. That's different.
I was thinking the same thing. I thought the word study was kind of weak. And since we are coming very close to voting on it and committing ourselves to actual words, we put something in the language specifying what we're looking for on the order of, and I just wrote down a few things: evidence-based, measurable, structured literacy plan. So we launch a evidence-based, measurable, structured literacy plan by February 2021.
John, how did you read that?
So I read it as really is to have a meeting with the board prior to even beginning any of the work. I mean, what I think I'd like to do is get the teaching and learning and special services together to talk about how do we go about developing this plan and what are the elements that it's going to take to develop that. Once that's in place, I would bring that to the board for some input, and I would do that yet this fall. So it wouldn't be something that it would be delivered on the February 2021, but I put that date out there in the event that study creates the need for resources that would then fit into our budget work. So that's the significance of February.
Mm-hmm. I think the logic behind my reasoning is that I'd like to create a little more urgency with it because I sense that it's such a significant issue that has so many ties to equity also. And it's one of our top 3 priorities. So I think that's why.
So if we change this instead of launch a literacy study, change the wording to develop a literacy plan, would people be comfortable with that? Would John be comfortable with that?
I would be concerned about the timeline of that. I can develop a literacy plan. I don't know if I can get that done by February, knowing that we have COVID and whatever is going to happen with our models. So I'm just balancing what we're all working on right now and this. So just that flexibility. But I have not had a chance to really talk this over with teaching and learning yet. So to get the idea of what this would entail. So I'm flying blind a little bit from this question because I didn't realize this question was going to come up tonight.
So not because I don't think it's important that we have a literacy plan, but in all the realistic scenarios that I can play out in my head, what a plan looks like now, what a plan could look like in December, what a plan could look like in February, what a plan could look like in June. There's so many different iterations that I hesitate for us to say right now that an actual plan by February 2021 is the plan that we want going forward long term. I agree with Julie where this doesn't necessarily supersede literacy work in the district, but I am a little bit hesitant to put a date on a final plan as we get ready to enter such uncertainty, such movement, and such instability within the district with just what's going on. And I would want us to be really cautious that whatever plan we put together has solid, attainable goals. And without having all of the metrics that we've had in place for years and years, without having any of that, and really knowing between now and February what those ongoing metrics, whether they be standardized testing, whether they be face-to-face, I agree with the need for it wholeheartedly. I am concerned with putting a date on it with that February 2021 date. So I don't know if this is something we can rework. I don't know if anybody else has an opposing view to that.
Maybe what I am just looking for is that we could, as we teach our kids to do whenever there's a big project, we can at least compartmentalize certain aspects of it and say, well, we will take on a certain aspect of our literacy plan. Whether
kind of
that
chunk
be,
it out.
And chunk it out. So that by February, we might be able to say, and I'm going to just throw out some ideas. It could be that we'll work on our K through second grade plan for literacy, or it could be what we're going to do in middle school for literacy. I think as a board, we've often talked about the priority to start early for early intervention of students to make sure that they're on the right path. So I would suggest that we take that on, and whether we need to say we have to chunk it even smaller, but to make a step is really important. I can't just, I'm very uncomfortable with this launch a literacy study because I'm afraid we won't have any actionable steps this year in either defining what our district feels it needs to do in terms of delivery or materials or additional supports. So
it sounds like it's more of a wording.
Well, I'm a little concerned about this late phase in the process to sit here and try to define feel should be a priority from a literacy perspective for our district without having any sort of metrics, any sort of, that alone is a very important conversation for us to have as a board. And to try to just on the fly say, oh, I think we should prioritize this in order to put an artificial marker in a goals document feels very uncomfortable to me. I think one of the challenges that we have is that we did an intervention study last year that has a lot of components of literacy in it that are already predetermined and that the district is already, sorry, the lights went off in here, that the district is already actually working on. And so we have an intervention study going on with a lot of literacy components, such as training our teachers and the science of phonics and things like that. Those things are going on, which is why it's listed in the goals, continue the current work. At the same time, now in our strategic plan, we're talking about doing literacy. So those things are really doing a parallel path. And so to not really clearly figure out all of these different things going on and how they coincide and work off of each other, and just to me, pull something out of the air and say, our expectation as a board is that you're going to come up with X, Y, and Z tonight. I don't personally think is a good idea. I think that we should have the expectation that we need to have another discussion about this to figure this out.
As far as a superintendent goal, then that we'll figure this out as a superintendent goal. Is that what you're recommending?
I have no problem with the superintendent goal as written because it says that our expectation is that at minimum, we're going to have a study completed for what we need to do. And then if need be, we can have an update from John at a further meeting to say, these are our expectations. How is the literacy study going on? But I think that I don't think anyone on the board or in the administration doesn't understand a sense of urgency, nor are they going to stop doing some of the work. I also think it's very complex to even try to figure out how do you launch literacy in this environment. So I think as a board, I think we need to understand that, which is some of what Janie was talking about, which is there's such another layer of complexity right now that we need to give our administration time to figure out how do you even launch a literacy study in the environment we're in? How do you even figure out metrics in this environment? And so without having some of these conversations, I think it would be bad practice to just try to figure out an artificial goal tonight that is not achievable.
Well, one of my thoughts is sorry, Erica. I feel like I sort of jumped out with this phrase, and here we are. We want to move on, and it's after 9:00, and we want to wrap this up. But for me, it's just been uncomfortable, the weakness of the word study. And I brought it up in the spirit of deliberation to get you all think and what's realistic, because Erica, you're dead right. We have this huge adjustment to make to COVID, and that is shifting all the priorities. And so I wanted to at least entertain a discussion about it, because I wanted to keep ourselves honest with this literacy goal, that it is an incredibly important goal, and we don't want to lose it in these abstract words of study that we could be vague about, and keep ourselves honest to it. Just like I do this with myself, you probably do too, that you come up with hard and fast goals that reflect your priorities. And so, I mean, if we can honestly look at each other and say that we still believe that this is very urgent, but we have to also accommodate to the realities of COVID, then I could go with it as is. But if for nothing else, I wanted to bring it up in the spirit of, let's be realistic and let's be honest with ourselves about, let's drive for this. Anyway, that's what I want to say. Lenny.
Okay, so John, you had said that you wanted to be able to talk to the teaching and learning people to kind of get a little more terms of realistic hard dates. My thought process on this is to approve it as it's written, with the understanding that we would like as a board to revisit this goal, and so that we may in November put in harder dates in terms of what the milestones are for what we're accomplishing this year. One of the things on a superintendent goal is you want to know what you're supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to approve this with telling you we're going to modify it based upon the feedback from us and the information from you, and put in harder dates so that you can then have a more concrete deadline. And I think that addresses what Owen and Ellen are talking about, but addresses what Eric and Janie are talking about in terms of trying to pick something tonight.
Yep.
So does that?
Yeah, that makes sense. And that was been my plan, to bring that sometime October, November, to talk to you about what kind of shaped this. I just haven't had a chance to meet with leadership on this.
Can I just make one comment on top of what you just said too? I think too, as we know, we don't know what things are going to look like in November, right? So I just want to add the caveat that there is no message here from this board that literacy isn't one of the top priorities. It rose to the top of all the different things that we've the district, and that has been very clear, and there's a commitment there, and there's work going on. And so I just want to make sure that I really appreciate John's honesty that COVID and getting our kids back to school and a launch that we were able to do takes a lot of time. And so I appreciate the honesty that he's giving us and telling us, like, yes, and I need time to do this properly and plan it out and look at this as a study. And so I want to make sure that when we revisit this, that we are using a lens of the top priority is our kids in this new learning model and all the complexities there. And then, of course, all our other priorities are important, but I just want to say that out loud, because I want to make sure that in November, we're not saying, well, you didn't do this, because we don't know what it's going to look like in November. Things could go smoothly. Hopefully they will. We've set up the best that we possibly can to get there, but I just wanted to just make that clarification, what the conversation I would expect to have in November.
So I really fast want to do a process check and let everyone in the board on this meeting and in the community know that it's not. So in 10 minutes, we're going to have to take a 10-minute break because the live streaming, we actually can only do for 3 hours. And then we have to do another link. So I just wanted to let everyone know that at 9:50, we will actually be taking a break in order to have another link set up to continue our meeting. So I'm sorry for interrupting people in this conversation, but I just wanted to do that process check right there. So we can now continue. I see green dots for Lenny, Owen, and Alan, but I'm not sure if you guys are frozen or if you actually have things to say. So
I was only going to say that I think we've all kind of given our piece here, and I would appreciate moving on to a vote on it.
I am A-okay with that. Okay, we will now vote by roll call to approve the superintendent goals, knowing that the literacy goal is going to be revisited at a later date.
Okay, Allenberg,
Aye.
Fox,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Michelson,
Aye.
Shaw,
Aye.
Wallenfriedman,
Aye.
The superintendent goals are approved. We're now going to move on to the board goals. Do I have a motion to approve the board goals?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, so the board goals we last discussed in August, and from that discussion, we discussed as a board prioritizing the following: governing and monitoring the district in 2020-21. I can't say those two together. 2020-2021. Governing and monitoring the strategic plan, supporting equity work, and becoming more effective as a board. With those priorities in mind, these goals were created, which I wrote from that feedback. So again, I apologize we didn't get a chance to talk about this at the work session, but they are listed out. And then under, you see their bullet points, because I know that some board members brought up certain specific things they wanted us to work on as a board. And so I tried to include all of those different things that different board members listed in bullet points, so we could have those things written down as well. Ellen?
So I think this is actually your or Lenny's concept for that you had brought up earlier in this meeting on the district pandemic oversight, goal number 1. And you had mentioned having the ability to know when we might make changes to our models. What would be the process? I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it was something that's not listed here for district pandemic oversight. And I think it's a good one, that we would know both when we would be considering another model or tweaking the model that we have. What is it? What would be that process? And so I would add that as a bullet point, because I think it's an important one.
Ellen, do you think if we just change some of the wording? Okay, so under goal number 1, receive update on implementation of hybrid and EVA models. So maybe if it was receive an updation and I'm trying to think of what the word would be. Anybody
would it be like end or shift?
And or shift, something like that. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what the right word would be. But yeah, so basically taking what you were saying, Ellen, about Erica's comment about what are the key indicators of knowing when.
What about
the shift?
if we're doing just wordsmithing, right? If we're doing at the end of the first bullet point, for the purpose of evaluating and reacting to changes in the model. Received updates on implementation of hybrid and EVA models for the purpose of reacting to and making changes to the model.
Yep. Thanks, Matt.
Does that satisfy?
Absolutely. That would capture it. That would do it. Thank you.
Okay. Did anybody more useful than me write that down?
I wrote it down. And
Okay,
I
good.
am more useful than you. No, I'm just kidding.
I got it, Matt. Thank you.
Okay.
And then the other concept, I'm just wondering if it's our role to ensure the correct safety protocols for students and staff. I'm not really sure that that's our role. We might want to change the wording on that one too.
Oversee rather than ensure?
Yeah,
Oversee?
probably oversee.
Okay.
Erica, did you get that?
Yep.
So did I.
Thanks, Sarah.
Owen?
Oh, no. Sounds good.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, so we will vote by roll call to approve the board goals with the 2 changes, adding to the bullet I can't think of right now, but I know which one it is on my paper, for the purpose of evaluating and reacting to and making changes to the model, and then change the word ensure safety to oversee safety. We're now voting by roll call.
Okay. Allenberg,
Aye.
Fox,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Michelson,
Aye.
Shaw,
Aye.
Wallen Friedman.
Aye.
So the board goals have been approved with the 2 suggested changes. I'm going to stop this board meeting now because we only have 3 minutes.
One process question. In the event that Owen, as our faithful leader on policy, is able to get us through the next agenda in 7 or 8 minutes, would that be tolerable?
I'll try.
There's no way that we can get through policy 601.
We shut down in 4 minutes. Okay, because I know we've reviewed this.
Yeah.
I just wanted.
Yeah, sorry.
Challenge, man. I'm sorry.
I know. I'm sorry. It was a good challenge, but
Okay.
yeah. So we're gonna have to shut it down.
Okay.
Chair Allenberg,
Yes.
we're going to need to have a motion to extend the meeting past 10 o'clock. We need
That's right.
for the majority to do so.
Thank you. So, can I have a motion to extend the meeting beyond 10 o'clock?
Second. Well, so just a second. We need to set a time. And so I would suggest 10:20.
That we finish by 10:20?
Correct. Because we're
I have a
going
motion to extend the meeting beyond 10 o'clock to 10:20.
Second? Or so moved?
We'll now vote by roll call. Sorry, Lenny. I'm cutting you off.
I'm good.
So Lenny moved and Owen seconded, right?
Yes.
Yes, to extend the meeting from 10 o'clock to 10:20.
Yep. Allenberg,
Aye.
Fox,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Michelson,
Aye.
Shaw,
Aye.
Wallen Friedman.
Aye.
So the motion is approved. We will finish our meeting by 10:20. We'll be back at 10 o'clock and we will be off for a 10-minute break.